Effort is not what holds your money down. Position is. And you have stood on the same level for years without ever seeing it. Open your banking app. Look at the number. Now think back 5 years. For most people, the number is roughly the same. A little higher, a little lower. The same balance in the same account, doing the same nothing it did half a decade ago. And the whole time, you have believed one thing about why. You have believed it was effort, that if you worked a little harder, earned a little more, cut a little deeper, the number would finally move. That belief feels like common sense. It is the most expensive belief most people ever hold. Look at what it has already cost you. You took the shifts. You said yes to the overtime. You did the extra work that was supposed to change things, and the balance sat exactly where it was. So you blamed yourself. You decided you had not wanted it badly enough. You followed the advice everyone follows: spend less than you earn, save what is left. And you tried, and the savings account absorbed your surplus and produced nothing. Then the boiler broke, or the car failed, or the bill arrived, and the little you had saved vanished in an afternoon. And while you stayed where you were, someone you started level with did not. A friend, a cousin, the colleague at the next desk. Same beginning, roughly the same income once. Then somewhere they made a different kind of move, and the gap between you opened quietly until one day it was a distance you could not explain. You worked at least as hard as they did, probably harder. That is the part that stings, and it is the part that points straight at the truth you have been avoiding. Each time the balance refused to move, the lesson seemed the same. Work harder. Want it more. Try again. So you climbed, and you climbed, and you stayed in exactly the same place. Because you were climbing inside a level instead of climbing out of it. The harder you worked, the more certain you became that effort was the answer, which is precisely why you never looked at the thing that was actually holding you down. Here is the gap nobody points to. Money does not move in a straight line with effort. It moves in levels. Fixed positions in a structure, each with its own ceiling and its own quiet trap that keeps you exactly where you are. The amount you earn barely matters inside a level. Two people on the same income can sit on completely different levels, because a level is not measured by how much comes in. It is measured by how much of it answers to you instead of to someone else. A pay rise inside a level gets eaten, a change of position compounds. That is why effort can run flat for a decade, while one shift in what you own changes everything that follows. Change your effort and you stay where you are. Change your position and the whole picture moves. There are 6 of these levels. The first 3 decide whether you ever escape struggle. The last 3 decide whether you build real power, and almost nobody crosses from the first set to the second. By the end of this video, you will know exactly which level you are standing on, what is keeping you there, and what each climb costs to make. Start at the bottom. More than 500 years ago, a Florentine diplomat named Niccolò Machiavelli watched powerful men rise and fall, and he saw a pattern. He split everything that decides a man's fate into 2 forces. One he called fortuna, chance, circumstance, what happens to you. The other he called virtu, not virtue in the moral sense. He meant capability, the power to shape your own position instead of being shaped by it. Machiavelli's whole claim was this: most people live at the mercy of fortuna. They take what circumstance hands them and they call it fate. The few who rise build virtu. They stop reacting to the structure and start changing their place inside it. The first group works inside their fate. The second group edits it. Money runs on the same law. Every level you're about to see is defined by one question. How much of your income depends on forces outside your control, and how much of it answers to you? That ratio is your level, not your salary. The ratio. 6 levels. Survival, the cage, the first options, leverage, dominance, and the level where money stops being the point. Machiavelli wrote that the man who depends entirely on others for his security has already surrendered. At level 1, that man is you. This is the level where fear makes every decision. Not dramatic fear, quiet, constant background fear. Fear of the rent, fear of the card being declined. Your boss controls your future because the job is the only income. Your landlord controls your security because moving is not an option. The bank controls your choices because the overdraft is doing the work a savings account should do. Every month begins already spent. The income arrives and leaves in the same week, claimed by people and bills that decided your month before you woke up. Imagine the message lands on a Tuesday. The boiler has failed. The repair is £400 you do not have. So you move money you should not move. You delay a bill you should not delay. You feel the floor tilt under a single ordinary expense. That tilt is level 1. Your peace depends on nothing going wrong, and something always goes wrong. Here is the trap inside the trap. When fear runs your decisions, you make worse ones. You stay in the job that drains you because you cannot afford a gap. You take the loan with the ugly interest because today outweighs next year. Each choice is rational in the moment. Stacked across years, they cement you in place. But two people can sit in the same fear and take different branches. One spends a decade only suffering it. The other starts studying it, asking a colder question. Not why is this happening to me? How does this actually work? And what would I have to change to stand somewhere else? That question is the first flicker of virtue. At level 1, your money answers to everyone except you. Now you climb, and this is where most people stop forever. At level 2, the fear quiets. You can pay the bills. There is a little breathing room, a month of savings, maybe 2. To the version of you at level 1, this looks like the destination. That feeling is the most expensive one in this video. Machiavelli understood something that sounds backwards. The most dangerous position is not total weakness, it is partial security. Total weakness forces you to move. Partial security whispers that you do not have to. You are no longer desperate enough to change, and not free enough to relax. Here is where you will want to argue with me. You are thinking, what is wrong with comfortable? I worked hard to stop drowning. Why gamble the calm I earned? That objection feels like wisdom. It is the exact mechanism of the cage. The cage does not hold you by force. It holds you by making the door feel like a risk and the bars feel like safety. Because nothing fundamental has changed. Your income still stops the day you stop. So the money goes to performance. The newer car, the bigger flat, the upgrade that matches the raise exactly, so the raise vanishes and the position does not. The masses do not build wealth here. They decorate the cell and call it a home. One layoff still breaks you. The structure underneath is the same fragile structure as level 1. It is just better furnished. And the longer you stay, the more you have to protect, so the more reasonable staying feels. That is the cruel design of the cage. It does not get easier to leave as you settle into it. It gets harder because comfort quietly hardens into a reason. A more comfortable prison is still a prison. Level 3 is where the air changes. For the first time, something you built produces income that does not come from selling your hours. A skill sharp enough to command a premium. A small business. A piece of work that keeps earning after the work is done. It is not much yet, but it gives you something you have never had. Options. Options are the beginning of power. Machiavelli's prince could only strategize once he no longer depended on a single patron to survive. The moment he had more than one source of strength, he could think ahead. He could refuse a bad deal. He could wait. Level 3 gives you exactly that. You can say no. You can turn down the draining client. You can think in months instead of days. Marcus Aurelius, writing as emperor, kept returning to one discipline. Separate what is in your control from what is not, and pour everything into the first. Below this level, almost nothing is in your control. Here, for the first time, a real share of your income answers to your decisions instead of someone's permission. But level 3 has its own trap, and it is gentle, which makes it dangerous. The trap is relief. You escape the fear. Life is better. And success starts whispering the sentence that ends more climbs than any failure. This is enough. You are doing better than most people you know. Why keep pushing? That whisper is where growth quietly dies. People confuse escaping struggle with building power. One gives you a better life, the other gives you control over it. Relief feels like the summit. That is exactly why so many stop on the slope. Those were the 3 levels that decide whether you escape struggle. The next 3 are different. They are not about escaping anything. They are about building something that compounds, and the price of reaching them is the price most people quietly refuse to pay. At level 4, you stop asking how to work more and start asking how to make one effort produce 10 results. This is the line almost no one crosses, and it turns on a single distinction. Income versus ownership. Income pays for your life. Ownership builds your power. Below this level, you earn. Here you own. Your business runs when you're out of the room. Your investments grow while you sleep. The work you did once keeps paying, because what you built has value apart from your presence. Here is the mechanism the wealthy understand, and the broke are never told. You are not paid for effort. You are paid for the risk your position lets you absorb. There are 3 ways money reaches you, stacked like steps. The first, you are paid for your time. You work, you get paid, and the moment you stop, the money stops. Most reliable, lowest paid, because you carry almost no risk. The second, you are paid for an outcome. A share of the profit, a result you are responsible for. Now your pay is chained to whether the thing works, not to your hours, and the reward climbs to match the risk. The third, you are paid for a position. You own the asset, the equity, the structure that earns whether you show up or not. You took the most risk to build it, so it pays the longest and the largest. The masses spend an entire life on the first step. They work harder on the one rung designed to pay the least, and they call it ambition. Machiavelli called the man who shapes his own fate the man of virtue. In money, this is what it looks like. You stop submitting to the salary someone else sets and start building the position that absorbs risk on your terms. The price is real. To own instead of earn, you have to tolerate uncertainty and keep building when the results are still invisible. Most people will not. They reach for the rung that pays today because the position that pays for years demands a patience they were never taught to hold. Income rents you a life. Ownership buys you a position. Only one keeps paying when you stop. At level 5, survival has left the conversation. Your resources exceed your needs by a wide enough margin that money stops being about safety and starts being about reach. You own assets that appreciate. You hold capital that compounds. A single decision can produce results for years because you are no longer trading effort for outcome. You position resources and let time do the heavy work. Machiavelli watched this in the power brokers of his Florence. They no longer feared the moves of others. They had become the move others had to plan around. One lever defines this level. The world consistently overpays for risk it does not understand. When something looks dangerous but is not, the few who can tell the difference get rewarded far beyond the real danger they carry. At the lower levels, you cannot play this, because one wrong move ends you. Here you can, because you have the margin to be wrong and survive it. Think of the investor who buys what everyone else is fleeing, not because he is braver, but because he can see the danger is smaller than the crowd believes. The fear is real, the risk is not. He gets paid for the difference between the two. And there is a quieter cost, the one most people refuse to pay. To climb, you have to be willing to be disliked. The people around you are not neutral about your level. Some have a quiet interest in you staying exactly where you are. Your level is partly a reflection of the company you keep, and when you start to rise, a few of them will feel it as a loss. They will say, you have changed. They will call you cold. Ask the harder question underneath their reaction. Who profits from you staying where you are? Often it is the people closest to you, whose comfort depends on yours not moving. This is not permission to grow cruel. It is permission to stop arranging your life around being liked by people who need you small. At level 5, the test is no longer whether you can earn. It is whether you can be disliked by the people who profit from you staying small. Level 6 is rare enough that most people never quite believe it exists. Here, money is almost beside the point. The numbers are too large to feel. What matters is no longer the balance, but the structure. The thing you built that keeps running long after you stop touching it. Machiavelli understood that the highest form of power is not control you hold in your hands every day, it is permanence. The institution, the system, the set of rules that keeps producing the outcome you designed on its own across generations. And here is the part almost no one sees. At the very top, the most powerful often choose to vanish from view. They move through institutions, structures, and other people instead of headlines. Because once you can shape the rules, being seen is a liability, and being invisible is a form of protection. At this level, wealth stops being personal and becomes a question. What do you want to leave behind? What survives you? Because the man who reaches level 6 almost always discovers the same ordinary truth, dressed in extraordinary circumstances. The money was never the destination, it was the bridge. It carried him towards something he could not name when he stood at the bottom, staring at a balance that would not move. Almost nobody reaches this level, not because they could not make the money, because reaching it means thinking past yourself, in decades, in structures, in things that outlast your own name. Most people cannot hold a thought that large for long, so the money gets spent on the person and the structure never gets built. At the top, the question is no longer how much you have. It is what keeps running when you are gone. So here is the map. Survival, where your money answers to everyone but you. The cage, where comfort locks the door. The first options, where relief tempts you to stop. Leverage, where ownership pays what effort never could. Dominance, where money buys reach. And the untouchable level, where money stops being the point. Now go back to the banking app, the balance that had not moved in 5 years. You blamed effort, you blamed yourself. It was neither. It was a level, a fixed position, holding you steady the way every level holds you steady, until you change what you control. The weight you feel right now is the distance. Do not put it down too fast. Feeling it honestly is the first move fear could never let you make. The masses spend their whole lives on one level, certain it is the whole world. You have seen the structure. You can name your level, and you can name its price. Most people will feel the truth of this for an afternoon and then let it fade, because seeing the structure and acting on it are two different costs. The first one is free. The second one is everything. The map will not climb for you. But you can no longer pretend you do not have one. Your level is not your address. The climb starts the moment you decide that. Subscribe and keep climbing with us.